Hello, everyone. If you are viewing this video, it means that I have been prevented from giving this presentation in person because of the fact that the MRFA has been taken over by a particular faction, which is hostile to open inquiry and freedom of expression. This is something that I want to talk to you about today because we have seen this to some extent with the code of conduct, which was distributed on Friday, to try to bring about what's been referred to as the 2022 theme of the retreat, which is cooperative and shared learning. The preface for this retreat's program, this code of conduct for MRFA members, notes that the association has developed the following guidelines and standards of behavior to support spaces which promote respectful interactions and minimize harm. To this end, we are told that members must not engage in offensive or hateful comments at any time. According to MRU's expression and free speech policy, however, Mount Royal University unequivocally embraces its institutional responsibility to ensure the free and open exchange of ideas in the spirit of intellectual and critical inquiry. And to this end, the university will not suppress presentations or debate when the points of view expressed are thought to be offensive, unwise, immoral, extreme, harmful, incorrect, or wrong-headed. The MRFA's code of conduct clearly contradicts with this sentiment expressed in Mount Royal's expression and free speech policy. And this is due to the fact that we have this code of conduct is due to the fact that certain influential members of the MRFA often come down on the side of suppressing speech as opposed to protecting the free and open exchange of ideas. Take, for example, an MRFA event on academic freedom last year. At this event, a member of the MRFA dismissed the claim that academic freedom was threatened at MRU. He referred to what he called phantom threats to academic freedom and maintained that these phantom threats were being, and I quote here, used as justifications for inviting or defending speakers who hold toxic, discriminatory views of all kinds, whether these be the homophobic and transphobic arguments of so-called radical gender critical feminists, white supremacism and xenophobia dressed up as cultural geography studies and immigration studies, atheism and secular humanism as a cover for Islamophobia, or the pervasive, ongoing, relentless anti-Indigenous views to which everyone in attendance here has been relentlessly subjected to over and over again in every academic venue imaginable. In every one of these instances, the imperative protecting academic freedom at MRU has been used to legitimize and defend public expressions of views that, in this person's estimation, are hateful and discriminatory. For people who are unaware of the context behind those remarks, there are four speakers which members of this panel actually supported their expression. So supported their ability to put forward those ideas at various events. The gender critical feminist referred to as Megan Murphy, who presented her views at the Does Trans Activism Negatively Impact Women's Rights event that the Rational Space Network put on. The reference to atheism, and Islamophobia is to Armin Navabi, who the Rational Space Network rebooked his event after it had been canceled and then postponed by MRU administration. The third view is to Mark Hecht, who is a former MRU faculty member, contract faculty member, who wrote an op-ed in the Vancouver Sun, arguing that too much ethnic diversity undermined trust, social trust. And then the final view is to me, with respect to my views. And I find this reference of particular concern because the ideas that my views are anti-Indigenous, toxic, hateful, and discriminatory form the basis of my termination from Mount Royal University. And the assertion that these four people, Murphy, Navabi, Hecht, and me, were espousing hateful and discriminatory views indicates how a faction within our union has become hostile to open inquiry and freedom of expression. This hostility of certain MRFA members to open inquiry raises two questions. The first is, what constitutes hateful and discriminatory views? And the second is, what do we do as professors when such views are expressed in the classroom? I will address the first question in the rest of my talk and then leave the other to the question and answer, which unfortunately I'm not able to attend because of the actions of this faction that has taken over the MRFA. Now, in terms of defining what is hateful or discriminatory, these can be found in Supreme Court decisions. With respect to hate speech, it's the 2013 Watcott decision, which is the most important. And in this decision, it's stated that it's not just discrediting, humiliating, or offending a victim that constitutes hate speech. It is a very high bar that must be met, and this is the bar of what's called detestation and vilification. And what detestation and vilification do is they essentially assert that that person or this particular group has no place in society. There's terms used such as rendering them lawless, so not really able to obtain the protection of the law. Those kinds of statements about groups. That's what hate speech is. And in terms of discrimination, we've seen this definition recently in the Ward decision, which actually came down in 2021. And in this decision, the Supreme Court states that discrimination is not just differential treatment. It is about forms of differential treatment according to on a protected ground in human rights legislation that impairs that person from having full and equal exercise of rights and freedoms to which they're entitled. So it actually has an impact, a significant impact on that person's ability to be able to enjoy rights and freedoms in society. So again, that's a very high bar, and that's not just about, saying something which is upsetting to a particular group. Taking seriously these definitions, one can see that the four examples to which the MRFA member referred to last year were not hateful and discriminatory. All of them criticized certain ideas and were not even directed at particular groups. In my own case, for example, criticism of the concept of misgendering fatigue and Indigenous science, whether Indigenous science should be incorporated into the curriculum, were considered to be hateful, harassing, and discriminatory because of this misapplication of these terms. And I was investigated. I was actually subjected to 3 investigations because of this misuse of these terms. And people who want to get a good sense of what happened in my case, you can look at a website which is being developed, which is called wokeacademy.info. And it discusses many of the episodes in which I was involved and how these kinds of accusations were made. Essentially, for this to happen, for this to be happening, what we are seeing is the weaponization of various complaints processes by some MRFA members to prevent people from discussing views with which they disagree. This, it should be understood, is part of a reactionary agenda, what some will call the de-enlightenment agenda of what is known as wokeism. Wokeism is a form of identity politics that has become totalitarian. It puts all MRFA members on an intersectional scale of oppression and argues that those that are oppressed have more of a right, who are perceived to be oppressed, have more of a right to speak than those who are perceived to be oppressors. Because by allowing oppressors to speak, you could continue to marginalize those oppressed groups, and those oppressed groups need to have their ability to put forth their viewpoints to be able to overcome the oppression that they're experiencing. These arguments, which are aggressively asserting themselves at MRU and within the MRFA, were responsible for the code of conduct that has been imposed upon us. If this woke agenda is not fought against, it will destroy the academic character of Mount Royal University. In order to pursue the truth, we need to consider arguments with which we disagree and follow the evidence wherever it leads. Wokeism, on the other hand, has a predetermined answer and acts to punish anyone who challenges its dogmas. And this is what the code of conduct has been set up to do. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I'm sorry that I was not able to present this in person due to the takeover of the MRFA by this woke faction.